Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Glad to be here, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Mark, do you still have a special offer for our listeners?
I do. 50% off at VRTrader.com for any of our newsletters. Promo code is 2021 half off, 2021 HALFOFF. Go to VRTrader.com and enter that in the promo code slot.
What caught your eye on the stock market this week?
Not a lot, except today we saw some upside action today, Thursday, in the cannabis, some of the cheap cannabis stocks, mostly the Canadian names like Tilray and Canopy Growth, for example, and Sundial, also a Vancouver company, extreme heavy volume to the upside, coming off intermediate bottoms, whether this is a big turn or just some speculative money coming in. But I pointed out in recent interviews that, what's the kind of things that I'm looking for, and I love when they kill stocks and they're down at the bottom and nobody likes them. And, we've seen this happen to so many individual groups over the years. Uranium was in that category for the longest time, and then suddenly it, took off, and even gold and silver were down there and had come back. Nobody wanted oil stocks after the debacle in 2020 when crude oil went to negative $30 a barrel, and so on and on and on. But, cannabis was, in that list, and, even solar stocks, which I really like, got slammed here in the last couple months and had a big correction, and they're looking pretty cheap. But today, in particular, cannabis took off in volume. So maybe there's some legislation pending. Maybe they found the cure for cancer or COVID in cannabis, and that's going to come out in the news. Or who knows what it is. Obviously,
I think there was some COVID. I think there was some COVID-related marijuana news.
Okay, well, maybe that's the cure is right there by taking a couple puffs or a couple drops of THC does that for you. That would kill the pharmaceutical industry for sure, right? If they want to make billions, injecting people with dangerous vaccines. But anyway, that's the sort of a hot little bastion of strength today. But overall, I'm not excited about the stock market, I have to tell you. I mean, I just see another wave of selling coming. We just had a lot of geo-cosmic stuff go on here. I mean, we're not talking much about that, but we had an earthquake last week in Japan, which created a bit of damage and a little tsunami related to it. We had some horrendous tornadoes down here in the U.S. going through Texas and Oklahoma and ultimately into Louisiana. All kinds of goodies, are hitting the planet here, stuff that we don't pay much attention to and don't think it has any relation to the financial markets, things, the sun could explode, but who cares? The Dow is going to rally, you know what I mean? So there's other stuff going on, which I think is awfully interesting besides what's happening in Ukraine, which seems to, focus the whole world on one situation. And we could spend hours talking about that and the impact or no impact on the markets, but, anyway, backing up to my comment, I see another wave coming down in the stock market. I don't think it's over. We're in the seasonal period. We were due for some type of low in the March period. We talked about this, the Ides of March, the vernal equinox, all kinds of good stuff. And many times you get lows in the March period. So I guess I could be a little too bearish and maybe they could carry a rally into April or May, I suppose. But I don't think it's over. I have much lower targets in the indices and the S&P in particular. So whether another outlier event is going to trigger that, whether it's a nuclear event or the threats of a nuclear event, or there's another, outlier surprise event that hits. We're talking about all kinds of things that can affect the market besides Geo-cosmic, and nothing on the list that we had described that included Ukraine. We speculated about China, Taiwan, and Iran, Israel, and, all kinds of, good stuff, North Korea, and then suddenly out of the blue, Ukraine hits and the world is upside down. So I'm sure there's another event coming, and we'll find out. That it's going to be interesting how this year unfolds.
I've read a few articles now that say globalism is over with the Russian invasion of Ukraine because it's going to break down to China and Russia together versus pretty well everybody else in the world. And instead of going for the cheapest product or the cheapest source, we're going to go to the most reliable, politically correct source. Do you see that happening?
Who would that politically correct source be, according to your sources?
Well, it's just people that you think are on your side. I don't know if the term politically correct is the right one, but countries and regions that you think are politically stable, for example, and won't cut off their oil or gas or have their oil and gas cut off for political reasons.
Yeah, I don't know who that's going to be, because here, even in the U.S., the anti-oil thinking, doesn't make us so stable unless the Democrats turn around and decide that they need oil here. So, honestly, I have no idea where the politically stable place is. There doesn't be too many politically stable places. What's going on? Europe is a mess. You've got Klaus Schwab there with his Nazi one world government theory, and his buddy George Soros tied into all that. And then, of course, you got Russia itself. The U.S. is a mess politically here. Trudeau is a mess up in your part of the woods. You decide you want to confiscate money from people for political activism on their part. I don't really know where it's a place. Maybe it's Japan. I don't know. We got to find out where there is a place where the people that are running the government are nuts, because they seem to be nuts in all the places that I mentioned, including here in the U.S.
The U.S. government talking about making cryptos or digital currency official. And is there a difference between digital currency and cryptocurrencies?
Well, the digital currency is the way the government supposedly can monitor everything you do and spend money on. So what does a digital currency mean? It probably means that they decide one day that all the money in your checking account now is a digital dollar of some kind. And it's not a paper dollar, and it's not the credit card dollar that we're used to. It's a digital dollar that you can move around and use your iPhone or other methods to transact business, and they can track you and so forth and so on. So that's the only thing I can think of. It's a government version of currency, so they don't have to print currency anymore, and they can track everybody. I don't think other crypto is going away. I think people don't trust the government, and the government wants to create its own crypto. I don't know how successful it's going to be, whether people have no choice in going along with it if it happens. It could be a lot of jawboning and talking on their part, and nothing ever happens, or happens years down the road. The governments are basically bankrupt. I mean, Europe, U.S., they printed money beyond their ability to pay. There's all this rumor and talk about the Great Reset. Suddenly, as Klaus Schwab says in Europe, you won't own anything, but you'll be happy. This is the one world government view. So probably this discussion regarding a digital currency is probably a roundabout way of saying you won't own anything, but you'll be happy, and we'll take everything from you, and don't worry, we'll send you checks to pay your rent and buy you food, and maybe that's where the whole thought process is going. That's one of the reasons why I think Putin is doing the things he's doing, among many reasons. He doesn't want the one world government. He wants independence. He doesn't trust the West and the ideas of Klaus Schwab and Soros and all the other stuff going on. I would think he would support crypto, but maybe not. Maybe I have to ask him if I ever get him on the phone, and I'll ask him that question, whether Bitcoin and crypto make any sense, or he just wants to stick with the ruble.
I think Putin is actually developing a digital ruble.
Okay, well then that would make sense then, because then he would back it with gold or assets of his country, and there'd be some value to it. And knowing the way he's operated, because I know he has hoarded gold, he would want to see something behind the currency, unlike here in the U.S., which is not the case in Europe. So as a result of that is there's probably another run in gold coming here over the near term, whether it's the big move or just another big shot to the upside. I think that's probably also coming. Whether it stays up there, that's another question. We'll see how world events unfold. But I would caution everyone, at least from the models that I have and what I'm feeling, hearing, and saying, that yes, you might get a little more of a bounce in the market, but I'm looking for a much deeper sell-off this year, and I don't think the bear market is still early in its stages, in my opinion.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Should investors be looking at items or commodities that usually come out of Russia, like palladium or wheat, as hot places to invest? Because if sanctions hold up, those sources from Russia will dry up.
Yeah, well, those have been, strong markets, and the question is where do you get the stuff? I mean, if you want to trade the futures market or the ETFs for that, is there anything backing those up? If they're really a supply cutoff, is it real or is it just paper? Industry needs the real stuff. So the answer to your question is it's going to be shortages. Things won't get produced. Prices are going to go up. Ultimately, things won't get sold. I mean, I just read that you've got a bunch of Ford Broncos sitting somewhere in Michigan that are cluttering up parking lots and everything. That the chips have not been put in and are not drivable. So if you can't get it, certain things are not going to be produced. And the question is, you're asking, yes, the prices would go up, but can we actually get it if there isn't enough of it around, or there's an embargo against it and so forth? So it can get really nasty. I don't have all the answers for you here at all. All I know is that these Broncos are not being sold because there's no chips. How are these electric vehicles going to be produced without the needed lithium or palladium and so forth, copper to make them operate if the supply sources have dried up or you can't get them, regardless of price? Only so much can even be obtained. It can really get nasty out there. The thing is, so much of what we hear and read in the press, you have to sort of, you have to do your homework, because I honestly, I don't believe anything I hear in the press. I think it's all controlled, and obviously, even some of the conservative sources like Fox News, which I thought was somewhat reliable, have been really unreliable. So a lot of it is we're being fed a lot of misinformation, and I don't know how we get to the bottom line of where all the real information is. I just think that a lot of the stuff we're hearing, I don't know how we get to the bottom of it, but I just got to forget about it. It all started, my grand disbelief in society and the world, it existed for years, going back to the blackout of the Roswell information after 1947, so I lost faith in government after that event and hearing what had happened since then. But now, following COVID and the cover-up there and the fact that it was created intentionally, and I mean, where is the truth, Jim? So, roundabout answer to your palladium, platinum, nickel question. It's just, where is the truth here? And you're not getting it in the media, that's for sure. Maybe by just watching the screens in the stock market and watching the prices, I guess whatever is left of the free market and supply demand might give us the answers. That's probably maybe the only thing, because, as money tries to find a safe place. So, maybe following the money will ultimately give us our answers.
Mm-hmm. Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Have a great evening. Thanks for including me.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as vrtrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.